Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep-end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
And action!
Hello and welcome to episode 396 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio film to TV to high-end TV to documentary and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to royally F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson, and I'm delighted to welcome on the show the director, Claudio F. Joining him is our regular host, Andrew Roger, who is also the cinematographer on Claudio's latest movie, No Way Up. We sit and chat about making an indie disaster movie with planes at the bottom of the ocean and sharks. Yeah, that's right. This film is fantastic. I really loved it when I went to see it recently. I've mentioned it on previous podcasts. It's just brilliant fun. It's excellent action. It's exactly what you want and what you kind of expect, except I feel this has elevated it, and it's just a delight. Myself and Andy Roger sit with Claudio and chat about the cinematographer and the director collaboration and that relationship. We talk about vision, logistics and stunts and shot listing when you're doing huge, big set pieces like a plane crash, and making limitations your friend. We talk about VFX or practical, why they took a real plane and put it underwater, and how they made a 3D model of that set. We also dive into edit and post and VFX trimming and test screenings and directing actors and those lessons learnt along the way as well. So how you doing? You okay? I hope you are. Thank you for listening. I hope you listen today and get some inspiration for going out there and making your movie yourself. You might not be able to go make a movie at the bottom of the ocean with planes and sharks, but you also might. This might give you the inspiration to do something like this as well, because you can do it. Because you can do it. It feels daunting and really difficult to go out there and get a film made, especially when it's just you plodding away or plucking away or keep getting those rejections, and who do you go to and where do you find money? But we have now 396 episodes on exactly that, of how you can go and make it. Go make your film, make your TV series, and make them happen. So either get listening or get inspired and go out there and do it yourself, and tell us about it later. I'm going to dive straight in. I'm just going to list you off some of Claudio's credits first. He directed Hollow Man 2 and a movie called The Guardians, as well as Sniper Reloaded. And not too long ago, he directed a movie called Northman, a Viking saga, which starred Tom Hopper, Ryan Quanten, Ed Skrein, and James Norton. And his other directed film, Sniper Ultimate Kill, starred Tom Berenger and Billy Zane. And now he's directed No Way Up, which stars 3-Day Millionaires, Colm Meaney, as well as Will Attenborough, Sophie McIntosh, Phyllis Logan, and Grace Nettle, and James Carroll Jordan, who I actually was in the West End with. We're both in a play in the West End. Technically, it was a musical. We were both in it. So that's how I know James. And James is in this movie, No Way Up, as well. Just to give you some of Andy Rogers' credits, because why not? It's a good chance to promote my movies at the same time, because wonderfully, me and Andy have worked together on various projects over the years. He has been the cinematographer on Plebs, Stay Close, a big Netflix series, 3-Day Millionaire, as I've mentioned already, The Dare, Arthur and Merlin, Knights of Camelot, as well as many more, but now No Way Up as well. No Way Up is about a plane crash. The characters are traveling on this plane and it crashes into the Pacific Ocean, which is a nightmare flight for the survivalists, and they've got to try and survive with the air supply running out and dangers, including sharks, creeping in from all sides. This movie has been produced by Annalise Davies and Andy Mason, who was also the writer. So let's get to it, shall we? Here's me, Giles Alderson, chatting with regular host Andy Roger and cinematographer of No Way Up, alongside the director Claudio F. Have fun.
Guys, this trip is gonna be a blast. That's gonna be us in, what, a few hours?
Why is the plane so empty?
It's because it's really old.
What?
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're gonna be just fine.
We're surrounded by water. We're in an airlock. We're safe. No reception? There's no one to save us down here.
Was that a shot?
What's a shark doing on a plane?
We're gonna have to find our own way out.
How long do you think we have?
We're sliding down, man! We're running out of air.
Should we try to swim out the hole?
But what about the sharks?
Do you think we can make it out of here?
We have to try. There's a hatch.
Look, they come to save us!
Turn around!
Hi, Giles.
Hello, mate.
Hey, Andy. You're still muted.
How you doing?
All right.
All right.
Good to see you guys, the both of them together. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Let me put a light on 1 second.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is it's a real pleasure to chat to you.
Same here. It's an honor. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely flattered.
Yay. How did you, let's talk about your moment of meeting and how that was. Because it's sometimes difficult when you're, meeting a new DP for the first time, meeting a new director for the first time. It'd be really interesting before we dive into, another pun there, No Way Up, in terms of your meeting on the film. What was that like? What was the pitch process like? What were you looking for, Claudio?
What was it? I mean, it was on Zoom, wasn't it?
I was going to say, I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
Obviously, big impact on us both. Yeah, I think it was a Zoom like this. I think it was yourself and a couple of the producers, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I had seen your work. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. Included some of your movies, Giles.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Oh,
good. Did you
okay.
watch them all the way through?
Just the ones that I had shot. Yeah.
Just the trailers. Just the ones.
No, it's really good. And then what struck me immediately, and I think that was the one of the okay. Aside from the fact that your work, Andy, is completely, it was great, and
Thank you.
In many ways what I was looking for. But when I met you, I saw that your demeanor and the way that you carry yourself is just so cool, because we knew we were going to be stuck in an airplane underwater for God knows how long. Mm-hmm. I need somebody who's going to be lovely to be around with. And that's actually not to be underestimated. I think I learned that from DP Theo van de Sande, who I had the pleasure of working with as a producer on Joe Dante movie, The Hole. That was a 3D movie, and we had this ginormous cameras, 3D stereoscopic cameras that were like refrigerator size thingies. Right. And they were always hanging off of a techno crane and poking into the set. And it was a movie with kids. Mm-hmm. And Teo said, yeah, normally on a techno crane, you have the camera. And I'll get to the point of Andrew, by the way.
Oh, no. Please tell the story. Yeah.
The camera is, hanging off of a crane. It's all this technology, blah. And then you're on a microphone and a speaker, and you talk to the actors through the microphone, and you're like, half a set away from them. And Teo said, no. I mean, I'm going to operate the camera off of the techno crane because I need to be there for them. So they have somebody to be close to them and feel comfortable with them, and create a rapport. with. And I realized, okay, DPing goes way beyond setting the light, way beyond choosing the lens, way beyond setting the frame. It is the personality that very much influences how the actors, how comfortable they are. And then I had the right instinct when I met Andy, like, oh man, this is a really nice guy. And I think nothing shakes him. And it's true. I mean, we went through hell and back. And he was like, whenever you need a shoulder to lean on, you go to Andy. And that's exactly what I wanted the actors to have. And that's exactly how it worked out. They just loved having him in the water, swimming around, swimming next to him, you know? So, yeah.
I'm glad we brought Claudio on the podcast. This is
Look at that.
like, we can go now.
Yeah. You can put that on your website now. You're done. Drop the mic.
Thank you. I mean, thank you. Wow. But I get that. It's actually the main thing I look for in directors or any crew, really, is you're going to spend so much time around people. You want to be around someone that you like and you feel you can be on the same vibe level as.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very important. Well, I found that with Andy as well. We made a couple of shorts together before that and so much brand media and a couple of adverts and whatever we could, work together on before we made The Dare and then continue that relationship into Arthur and Merlin and then 3-Day Millionaire and World of Darkness and whatever else we've made together as well. It's really important, those relationships. I think when you're in the trenches or you're in deep water, you need that person who is on the journey with you.
Yeah.
And they're there supporting you and the actors know what you're going through. And someone like Andy knows that and does that. And hence why he gets repeat work and hence why he's very respected.
Yeah. And he comes with a crew of people that he's worked with, so you can kind of, if the DP is a nice guy, most likely the other guys will be nice guys too, isn't it?
So
and then it
true.
also helps that he's frightfully talented. I mean, that's
yes.
yes. We have to start there, of course.
We have to start, and it's really annoying. He's handsome as well. I wonder if we can big Andy
Yes,
up at
exactly.
Everyone's just switched off.
So everyone's turned this off podcast. And what is this? Is this Andy's
This is paid for by Andy.
Dateline?
This yeah.
That's exactly right. But I will say, one thing that was a little bit, at the same time, it was daunting.
I thought you were going to say one thing that really annoyed me about Andy.
Yeah, exactly. Just to put it in perspective here. We were at the tail end of the pandemic and production was back on and everybody was just scrambling. It was a feast, it was very difficult to crew up, period, everywhere, all across the globe. And there is an element of daunt. Is that a word? That is daunting. When you can't work with the people that you worked with, so many times, because you do, of course, develop a shorthand. And, but I also believe that there's something really beautiful about working with lots of, and this was the case in No Way Up, where I had very few, creative collaborators that I knew. It was mostly new people. And there's something daunting about this because you kind of don't have that element of comfort. But it also prevents you from being complacent. You have to kind of really question. You're not going to go, this is how we do it, isn't it? No. You have to start from scratch and really question your approach and sell it to everybody from scratch. And that is a healthy thing. It cleans out the pipes, doesn't it?
Yes. And it is not easy. It is not easy to get the right team. On set, can be a very heated place sometimes, shall we say. It can be everything's got to be done by 5 or 6 o'clock. You have to finish, and that can create tension. And if you haven't got the right people with you, that can go off in the wrong direction, or you haven't pitched it correctly to them so everyone's on the same vision and same path. It can be tricky.
I think that's a really good point on this film. Everything was so tight budget and schedule wise that one of the things I saw quite early was, Claudio did have a very strong vision of how everything was going to work and how all the pieces were going to fit together. Because there's visual effects, there's physical moving sets, there's underwater photography, there's front projection, there's virtual production, there's all manner of things happening. But it was nice to see a director stand at the front and go, yes, right, here's the plan. You had so many nights, Claudio. You had all your iPads and I could see a route through it. It was very daunting, but I could see a route through it, and I trusted that Claudio had a plan, and between everyone, it came together.
Well, let's dive into this and let's talk about it, because it is potentially people will say it's a shark movie, right? I mean, look, you've made a load of action movies before this as well, Claudio, in terms of, Sniper series and the Beyond Valkyrie as well. So you've done war films and you've done lots and lots of action and produced lots of other movies as well in terms of, all sorts of really cool stuff, like The Hole, for instance. And then you're coming into this, which is underwater. Had you worked underwater before? Was that something that you know?
We had almost nothing. I had like a small little sequence at the beginning of my Viking movie, Northman, where we had a brief moment underwater, which was mainly done by second unit. So I knew very little about it, to be honest.
So you're coming into something like this that is, something that if this came to me, I'd go, yeah, I really want to do this. I can't wait, but I have no idea how long it takes to shoot underwater. And I'd be leaning on Andy, who's done it a couple of times. Like, how do we do this? So how did you go about? How did the job come to you in the first place? I suppose let's talk about that. Is it something you developed in the first place?
The genesis of this project was sort of uncharacteristic in a sense, but really quite happy because Andy Mason, the CEO of Altitude, had come up with this idea and the script to No Way Up. And he sent it to me and asked me if I wanted to get involved. And just from on the face of it, it was like something that I couldn't say no to because there's so many. I mean, it's just the concept alone was so fascinating. And he sent me this first draft, and it was clear that we still needed to do quite a bit of work on the script. And then Andy, we got the financing, lined up, which was quite a happy affair and happened very quickly. And then Andy brought on board Annalise Davis, the sort of boots on the ground producer, to put this movie together alongside with me. And that was a fantastic decision too, because then between Andy, Annalise, and myself, I think we built a very strong trio. Like those two people were really the pillars for me to stand on, and they were both fantastic to work with in getting this show on the road.
Yeah, and let's talk about that relationship between director and producer. Obviously, Andy Mason is involved. He's producing it, he's written it, and obviously I imagine he's there and about. But Annalise Davis, I imagine, was hands-on, very much so, in terms of creating this. How was that relationship? How is any relationship with you with director to producer? But let's talk about Annalise, because she's clearly done a great job here.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's a good question because obviously with any movie you have like half a dozen to a dozen to more than that producers. And I will admit some of which I've never met. And they do their job like behind the scenes in lining up money and so on and so forth. But somebody like Annalise, I basically saw on a very daily basis for a couple of years now. And same with Andy, of course. And yeah, you need those relationships where I think the role of producer is in some way kind of not clearly defined because they can do many things. They can be helpful in many ways. And Annalise has an incredibly strong background in story development and character and script. And that was enormously helpful, particularly in a movie like this, where you only have so much time to devote to your characters because the logistics and the sort of high concept nature of it all takes up so much space, both screen time space, but also mind space in pre-production. So somebody with her talent was fantastic to have alongside me. So yeah, she was really the creative producer, boots to the ground producer that I was able to lean on. And it was quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. What is it you want as a director, like from that relationship with a producer? What do you want them to do, in terms of keep you away from stuff, when to keep you informed? What has worked for you over this sort of time of you making movies?
Well, I mean, I obviously love producers who give me the freedom to do what I need to do, but sort of are in the background and there to hold me when I fall, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So wherever I have a problem, I know I can be completely frank and honest and upfront with them. And ideally they would already have a solution, be it a, personnel issue or a creative question or some, problem with the script or the schedule, or whatever it is. Somebody kind of is able to think ahead and kind of offer a safety net for a director to fall into. And that's what it felt like with both Andy and with Annalise, that they had my back and I never felt like I had to hide things from them. And whenever I was up against the wall and didn't quite know how to solve or tackle a problem, Number one, I knew I could go there and be completely transparent about it. And I think that is invaluable. That's a fantastic quality to have in a producer.
Yeah, I've met Andy a couple of times in Cannes, and yeah, he's a really nice guy, and
super nice guy. Yeah,
yeah, and you could tell he's really excited by this project as well, because obviously he's written it, and that's really nice to see as well, that there's people in those positions can go, actually, I want to push something forward myself. Now, you've obviously worked in visual effects in the past, so you knew that world. How did you put your vision onto this? How did you go, okay, how am I going to approach it? Before Andrew Roger came on board, how were you going, okay, I need to work out how I can put these pieces together? And then we'll talk about how it changed as well.
Well, like I said, it's always a process, and the process, it's in this movie, I think what was one of the biggest challenges for me was to not let myself be distracted too much by the logistics and the engineering of it all. Because that took up naturally a lot of time. I remember in pre-production, we mostly talked about how do we get the plane underwater and how do we pay for it? What are the angles and what are the logistics and the physics and the rigging and all that? And it couldn't be more boring than that. I mean, it's super important because eventually everybody's lives depend on it, really. Because if you go underwater in an enclosed, airplane set, you can't run any risks. You have to be safe more than anything before you're dramatic, right? But all of that could easily take up all of your time as a storyteller. And then I think you end up with a industrial video at the end of the day. Nobody's interested. You have to have characters and themes and story in there that somehow string you along. So, but your time, not only in pre-production, but also storytelling time on screen on a movie like this is very limited in terms of setting the characters up. There's a limited amount of patience that the audience has and a limited amount of patience that the producers have in terms of, making numbers make sense. So I think it was all about finding out what the story at the end of it is all about. And I found, to me, one of the interesting things was that there's a through line in Ava's storyline. And this is going to have some spoilers, but her being a character who's suffering from, being insecure, and she's been, was raised with a silver spoon, as it were, and has sort of a whole support system, predominantly male support system around herself in the script that she relies upon and that she doesn't want to be without. I mean, she's bringing a bodyguard to Cabo, for crying out loud. What is that? Why can't she? This is crazy. And rather than fight that sort of slightly outlandish notion in the script, I said, well, let's embrace it. Let's bring it on board. What does that mean? What kind of a person is she? And how does she change over the course of this experience? And before we knew, we saw, well, this clearly is, at the end of it, is a story of her finding, finding strength and being able to realize that she can, maybe also inspire people to not give up and be some sort of a leader, and find her inner resilience. And then once you have that as a through line, it also suddenly mirrors in other characters, and you go like, oh, there's something to be had with this story that I can hang my hat on an emotional level that kind of does away with all the logistic challenges, and is something where I can also talk to the actors and creating characters that we will hopefully care about. That was an important thing to realize, because once you sort of have a core of what the movie can be about, and it doesn't have to be a singular theme, but if it's something where you hang on to, then suddenly you go like, well, okay, so the plane crash, what is the plane crash really? Then before you know that, it needs to be an experience from her perspective more than anything. How does she see this? What goes through her mind? And then, okay, well, that means that there needs to be, I suppose she will look for Brandon, who's down plane in business class and really far away from her. She wants him to be close to her. So that means we have to create a connection there. And then you realize, well, most of the crashing the plane probably would be shown from her perspective. So that's the most interesting angle. It's not so interesting to see the plane outside flying past camera and then suddenly go like, well, we couldn't afford that anyways. So, okay, let's take those shots right out. Let's stay with her because it's her story, because I know what the stories I can tell with her. And this story is not something that is going to be on the movie poster at the end of the day. It's not what the movie's advertised for. It's still a shark movie. It's still all of that popcorn aspect, but the subtext of the story, the emotional subtext that is in there, that you hopefully perceive on a subconscious level, is something that I, as a filmmaker, can center on. And it's suddenly all the discussion about, okay, how do we sink the plane becomes much more inspired, much more interesting, because it all revolves around a common theme.
It's so important you talk about theme and tone, because that's how you sell the movie, and it sounded fantastic. And I imagine that's how, you talked to Andy in the first place once you got to that point. With the previs then stuff, was there a lot, like you say, as Andy mentioned, there were so many different, like rear projection, front projection. How much did the two of you discuss this? How much was this, was the debates about which way you could shoot all this?
Wasn't time, was it, Claudio?
Wasn't a whole lot of time, no.
I think there wasn't a huge amount of time. We kind of had to pick a thing and go for it, and trust that it was the right way, and most of the time it was. But yeah, it took a lot of. I think if I'd been with a team of people and a director that was more argumentative or less sort of collaborative, less sort of yes we can do this, and yeah, that's how we'll do this, and also we'll do this, and how about this, and everyone just going yep, great, and running with it. I think that's why it's turned out so well, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, to second this and to be specific, like for the plane crash, I naturally, if you read it on the page, the set piece is described. It has all the logistics that go with it and stuff. And then, but then you go like, okay, that clearly means we need a gimbal. There's always this age-old gimbal discussion whenever it comes to plane crashes. And you've done those too, Giles, haven't you?
I haven't done plane crash, no. But
the World War II thing, I think you had...
Oh, we were in a plane, but that was CG. There was two people sat in a plane in an aircraft hangar. That was...
Well, it wasn't far off.
Exactly. It's not that different.
Oh, really? Did you do that with yours?
Gimbal doesn't give you a whole lot of, unless you have a really expensive gimbal, they're not as great as they sound on the page sometimes. Our fantastic production designer, Matt Button, said, I've done this in the past for, I think, a Sky show, or it was a BBC or something. And we looked at it and said, well, essentially, here's what we can do. Here's a gag that we know works with our set and with our means. And so you look at that and you go like, okay, well, let's take this on board and make some hay out of that. That's a gag that we can pull off, rather than trying to overstretch, make these limitations your friend and see what you can do and build that into the story and into the script. I think the same. So we ended up doing no gimbals, but we poured some money that we would have had in the gimbal into some more wire stunts, which we knew we can pull off. So we tried to make those the best. And then our stunt team from Malta, Phantom Stunts, Morgan, our stunt coordinator, was phenomenal. They came to play. They understood, okay, let's prepare this. They did a beautiful rehearsal, sent me videos of stuff. And we knew, okay, this is what we can do. So let's lean into that and tell the story that way, rather than trying to do something that we kind of know is a complete uphill battle. And it was similar with the tank, where we're like, okay, well, we wish we would have been in a larger tank, but here's what we have, and let's make the best of it. So that was sort of the all-around approach, I suppose.
Yeah, and does pay off. Sometimes you just have to sort of go, what have we got? Let's go with what we've got. Let's make a decision, because the worst thing you can do on a set is not make a decision. It's like, we're going to do this, and if that doesn't work, you go, cool, well, let's go this way. But at least you've made a decision. The more wishy-washy you are, it just becomes a neither. Yeah. Let's talk about the plane crash, because it was phenomenal. It was really good. I watched it again. I was like, I'm going to watch that plane crash bit again, because it was just great. I loved the chairs all smashing forward, and those little gags you had in there. And I felt that, I don't know, I just really liked it. I felt it was something I hadn't necessarily seen before as well. I felt it was done really well. Did you storyboard those moments, like almost an inch of its life, because of the setup of it? Or was it a case of, I storyboard some of it, but we might get an extra shot out of this, or we might get this? Or
no, it was more shot listing. This particular one, because it didn't involve crazy CG that needed that informed framing. I have become more and more a friend and a fan of not storyboarding unless it's completely necessary, and only doing overhead schematics that basically sort out the blocking of it all, and then have some suggestions of, direction of masters and singles where you need them. But the reason why I have somebody like Andy is that I want him to set the frame. And I don't want to dictate it with a storyboard artist who's not on set, who doesn't know the actors and doesn't see what's going on. So inevitably, or oftentimes when you have storyboards, you try to replicate something that you drew in a complete vacuum at home or in pre-production. And you go like, well, the shot is not quite what we imagined because it's not quite the thing, but let's try to get as close as possible. Rather than looking at the situation, you're like, well, this is the best angle right here now that I see everything in front of me. And I think an overhead sketch allows you, but the overhead sketches, I think, were quite meticulous, to say the least.
They were, yeah.
I mean, it's like, it looks complicated on the page. It's like, oh God, what are we trying to do? It's very, very, very precise.
And how many days did it take to shoot the plane crash itself? Can you remember?
What was it?
Because obviously there was the bit in your non-gimbal type in the plane.
Yes.
And then there was the stuff underwater as well, because there was two versions of it when the water's coming in.
The dry portion of it all before they hit the water, that was, I'm going to say, about 3 days plus the second unit day.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the moment where the water comes in, that would have been one more day because everything in the water tank, of course, slows you way down. You go very, very slowly. So you had even though we had a 28-day shoot for the whole thing, it felt like at times we were in a 16-day shoot because we had to crank out so many pages. And then once we hit the water, we felt like we were in a big movie because we shot an eighth a page a day or something like that. Like it was complicated. You suddenly slow the heck down.
Yes.
So that was that. And but on the plane, we were able to move reasonably fast. The one thing I will say also in terms of sort of planning things and being somewhat mindful of the logistics, and that those logistics also having the threat of taking over the entire mind space of everybody.
Yep.
But one thing that I'm sort of proud of the way it worked out is you mentioned it, these entire rows of seats that are being yanked out.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I think is completely unlikely to happen in real life.
I'd hope so, yeah.
They really hold it down well. This is they're just not flying out.
On purpose.
But in light of saying, well, we can probably bend we're telling an experience. We're creating an immersive sort of sense of what it would feel like to be in a plane crash of that kind, rather than to a T what it would actually be like, right?
Yes. And also you needed only a small selection of survivors as well. And obviously that didn't happen. I know there wasn't many people on the plane in the first place, but yet there might have been more survivors if you hadn't have had all those chairs smashing together, which just it looked amazing.
But see, there's two cases where chairs are being ripped out the side of the plane.
Yes.
And then upon impact, not only could I not show the plane hitting the water, because that would have been a visual effect that inevitably would not have looked good because we didn't have the money for big water simulation and stuff like that. So I said, well, what would it be like perhaps inside a plane? So there would be a massive amount of destruction, one would imagine. But more importantly, I knew that further down the line, there were scenes in the movie where I needed some staging area in this frightfully small fuselage. It's a narrow body airplane, and everybody has been on those airplanes. The aisle provides you with absolutely no room. There's one person who can stand there. But I had a scene where Phyllis Logan had to be CPR'd somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
So I needed and I had 8 people in like an 8-page scene in the fuselage standing in the water with absolutely zero room. So I said, well, how about magically the impact just concertinas 3 of those rows of chairs in a violent way, and therefore creates a little bit of a staging area that we can use. That was the primary reason.
That's amazing. That was the reason, because like you said, it's true, because I was thinking that the whole time I was watching. I was like, where is Andy stood right now? If he were doing camera, I was like, how is he squeezing into this space? But also, I was like, normally, we've all been on planes. If a trolley's in there or someone else is coming, you can't.
There's nothing.
You have to go onto the whole seat to get past them. So I think that's a genius idea, and the fact that it created that really wonderful moment in the plane crash.
Yes,
it's just actually superb.
See, that's a win-win. That's like you have a total limitation, you make it your friend. You go like, oh, wait, we can make something out of it. And if you sell it dramatically, I think, I'm not saying the whole world will go with it. I think aviation experts will go like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. But then you've got shark experts also saying, what they will say. So I take everything with a disaster movie with a pinch. And what about yourself then, Andrew, in terms of, shooting that section of it before you get to the water, the dry section, which I love that you've already, of course, you've got a name for it. What was that like for you as the DP as well, in terms of, okay, how do I do this to try and get the vision time?
Yeah, I mean, Claudio makes a good point. I mean, we had to have a very clear idea of what the actors were going to do, where they were going to go, how it was being blocked. But that meant I was quite free for Claudio and I to find those shots and kind of to react to it as if it was happening. Like, it felt quite real at times. I had weeks of nightmares during that shoot because, for 3 days I was in a plane crash, for 10 hours, like, and everyone's freaking out and there's air cannons going off and wind going through, and but it helped me because I was up there handheld with the camera right in there, reacting to things whizzing past and people jumping up, and so it helped me find the sort of emotional heart of the scene, which was terror, I guess.
Pretty much. And when you're in, like you say, you're shooting in the fuselage, can't say it. Oh, fuck off.
Fuselage, you were doing good. First time.
Fruitalage, I believe it's.
Fruitalage. Is it? Fruit?
Yeah.
Fruit. It can't be fruitalage.
Yeah, it's fruitalage.
Is it?
It's
madness.
No,
I've
fuselage.
never called it that. Fruitalage, thank you. Fruitalage. I'm not going to... Andy's trying to me to say fruitalage. Oh my God, fruitalage. I'm not going to say it. In the body of the aircraft.
Oh, good one.
Thank you. Right. How, in terms of the size-wise, because you now probably got to shoot on a wider lens, did you remove some of the wall at the back there to get in sometimes?
So Matt Button, who helped design the set with his team, the production designer, there was, because the way the plane was built, it was quite modular, but it wasn't quick to pull apart. So yes, chairs could come in and out, walls could come in and out, but it kind of needed to be pre-planned.
Yes.
The whole set was built to do a lot of things. There was rigging for stunts, there's all manner of stuff going on. So yes, it was kind of a case of moving stuff ahead of time when we knew we'd have to, but there's also a lot of squeezing between seats and standing on things, and a lot of the time there's two cameras on that. There's on the, if I'm remembering correctly, certainly on the second unit day, there's so sometimes there would be Nathan O'Kelly, who well, camera
Fantastic camera operator, yeah,
with a full-size Alexa LF and big anamorphic lenses, and he's a big lad as well, shoulder to shoulder, shooting this chaos. So it was tight, there's a full film crew in there, but there was enough room but I think it would have felt weird if we'd made it huge. You see TV shows and films sometimes, these huge airplane fuselages, and there isn't the claustrophobia, there isn't the trapped feeling, but I feel that we got that across.
Yeah, you definitely did. Well, I felt that you hadn't moved the walls at all. I got that claustrophobia, and I was like, well, where did you go, and where then is your team? How is the grip getting in there? And because there is chairs in the way, and I imagine then taking them out and putting them back in each time was an absolute arse.
A bit of a night.
I can imagine it was really difficult.
If I can maybe second that, I mean, let's be aware that the entire setup of the movie is quite outlandish. It's not something that necessarily we will have to be really afraid of. It will happen in real life, because I think it won't. So it's very much made up.
Like most disasters.
Having said that, we had sort of basically two roads to go down. Either we go, okay, this is completely heavy visual effects territory where lots of blue screens are in, and we shoot elements and put it together in post.
Yes.
Or we limit ourselves in the choices of shots and accessibility, but we go for realism, meaning we actually have a plane, we go inside the plane, we keep it as it is, a plane. We don't find impossible camera positions, but camera positions that are possible, that we recognize, and play for real, and live with the limitations of that reality. And the same thing with actually taking a full-on plane and sinking it into water, and not relying on too much CG trickery, and kind of basically, short of having trained sharks, let's leave the sharks. The sharks can be CG, that's fine. But everything else, make it as real as possible. Take a real plane with everything, the carry-on luggage down to the barf bags and the Coke bottles. You know what I mean? Everything is in there, and it's just being submerged, and we're inside it, and that'll create a emotional reality. And I think we often experience that, Annie. You know, when we were there, like, oh, this is so surreal. It's like a museum. This is like an installation, an art installation almost, you know what I mean? Because it's such a familiar place, and you put it in such an unfamiliar surrounding, meaning underwater. Yeah. And you're like, oh, wow, this is trippy. This is really crazy and very much anxiety inducing, because you don't have to say much. You just, you stick your fantastically talented actors in there, and they're like, yeah, I get it. This is very easy to understand what it would feel like.
So to get this right, that was a real plane that you put into a tank?
Very much so.
I didn't know that.
Into not a huge tank.
No.
Big plane in not a huge tank, yeah.
Yes, it filled the whole thing.
That's so interesting. So no wonder, Andrew, you're having like sleepless nights and stuff, because you're in there in a plane that is underwater. The next time you get on a plane,
that's sinking and pushing you under, like, all very safe, of course. But
of course. So then there was, so you had that on hydraulics, did you, in the tank? How did that work in terms of the water rising and coming down?
I mean, that was super clever. The riggers, them combined with Matt Button, I guess, designed this incredible rig where it's actually dropped. I mean, Claudia will understand it better than me, but it's where it's dropped into the water. So when the water is rising, the plane is being dropped with everyone in it into the, on cables.
Yes. That's frightening as well, because, like, say, your safety of and you're in the corner in your little wetsuit, squished next to Nathan with a camera going, well, if I go down, it's not a bad way to go. However,
but it's true. I mean, those are I think the most unique situations of the movie. We've seen plane crash. We know how to do it. We did something similar like that, and we were very happy with it. But then putting the plane underwater was the unique aspect of this movie, and something that I know in our circles nobody has done before. Even when you go back to Airport 77, that's where they've done it. But this is like a different generation, a different way of filmmaking too. Now here, we had this challenge of, with all our limitations, we took an entire section of an economy class, narrow body airliner and just sunk it. And then, but then there was so many discoveries on the way that we made. So we had, for instance, this, toward the end of the movie, of course, you have the water kind of rising to everybody's necks, and then the set collapsing. And I remember there's entire days where both Andy and myself in wetsuits spent swimming with the actors inside the water, and Andy would be sometimes on a regulator and a splash bag in the camera, waiting for the roof to basically push him underwater while everything. And that was really that's something,
Yeah, that is something.
And but then the other big sort of challenging sequence was when Colm Meaney had to, swim down the entire fuselage underwater, supposedly in great depth that is probably not survivable. But given that we are in a movie that allows people to do that. But we somehow had to shoot that, right? And I also, we decided earlier, we want to do this as real as possible. We are in a plane underwater and we have somebody swimming down. And then there was a big question of how we accommodate the space, because it's still a narrow body airplane that leaves no room, especially for underwater cameras. You would think, where do you go and where do you have all the safety divers and stuff? It's really treacherous. And then, understandably, he called me very early on. He said, Claudio, I'm being put up for dive training. I'm not a diver. It's fine. This is just meant to keep you safe. You're not going to have to dive much, but we want you to know what the ins and outs of using a regulator and so on and so forth, just to be safe. So he did that, and eventually, what we learned is, and this is one of the scenes that Andy and I storyboarded meticulously, because we wanted to, and we did it in a CG 3D model of our set with the correct lenses in it to find out, okay, what do we see? How do we, what is an angle that we can do with a diving double, like the wide shots where we actually see him swim down, and how do we get away with not seeing his face and so on, and what are the mediums and closest that we absolutely need with Colm. And in a scene that ultimately, at the beginning, was a bit more intricate even, we identified 7 close-ups.
Right.
7 shots that we absolutely needed with Colm. And then I looked at those, and you forget everything else around those close-ups, and you're like, okay, so how do we safest achieve those? And eventually we could always say, okay, let's get rid of the angle of the airplane, first of all, so that we're in a level airplane underwater, which makes it already easier because you're in the same depth.
Of course, yeah.
And then I was able to rise the airplane to the point where you could basically stand up and be outside the water.
Oh, brilliant.
So you only had to duck down only. This is still not only, because you had to duck down and kind of scooch underneath the overhead compartments, which I tell you, underwater is just immediately, it's a scary thing to do. But after a few attempts and with great instructions from our Marine team, Matt and John Joe were fantastic in making us all feel like, okay, we can maybe push a little further and a little further from take to take. And eventually we got these seven shots that I absolutely needed with Colm, from Colm. And it was fantastic. And I know he was nervous, but we were alongside with him in the water, and he pulled it off, and he looks like an action hero. That's fantastic, you know?
It's fantastic.
And then we filled in the rest with the diving double, and it was really cool. So that, all of that is like, it was a huge, steep learning curve for all of us. But ultimately, it was the most special thing about this movie, I thought.
What would you do differently next time? Let's say you're doing another, the sequel, the poor Ava happens to, it could be on another plane that crashes into the water and it's no way up again. Let's say, for instance, what would you do differently with some of those scenes now? Do you think there's anything you do differently?
Well, I think we could probably go a bit further on some of them. Because I will say that Sophie McIntosh, Grace Nettle, Manuel Pacific, who had the most intricate, most difficult dive moments themselves. On a breath hold, they had to go down, swim the length of the fuselage, this is a big spoiler, what the heck? Find a dead diver, strip him off. This is still while holding your breath. Strip him off strip the regulator and the bottle off of him,
gas canister,
and put them on themselves, and then on a regulator exchange, get to the other side of the plane and swim out. So they did all of that. They trained to do that for real.
Wow.
No dive doubles. They did it all for them by themselves. And I felt I did not expect that. And also Sophie then had these horrendous swimming scenes to do afterwards on her own, all on a breath hold. And she was phenomenal. So with them, I think we could go even crazier, you know?
What you mean by that? By actually you can push further? You can maybe even
be longer.
Right. Okay. And what about for yourself, Andy?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to explore that. I think I'd be along for that ride. I think this some of my favorite stuff is the underwater Sophie diving down with the flare. There's a red flare if you watch the film, which is really dramatic and really moody and quite scary. Would love to do more of that. I think what I should mention is everything. Well, most of the stuff underwater, the deep diving stuff, is a specialist camera operator, Mark Silk, and did a wonderful job. And I really enjoyed the bits of it I did. I really enjoyed it. I think I'd love to get more involved in that and be able to follow the actors down, deep diving stuff. I think that's if we got another one, I would train to do that. I think so I could do the whole movie.
But in terms of coverage, in terms of what you managed to get, because again, when it's fine to prep all this stuff, but when you get there and you're in the water and you're in it and it's taking time and if changing a lens, etc., and no one can escape or get out until everyone gets out. I don't know how it was, but it was definitely like that with the Dare, and you couldn't get out of the basement room.
It was very much like that, Giles. Yeah.
Until we needed you to get out. Yeah, it's the same, was it? Right. So in terms of that, then, how did you manage to shoot those bits in terms of make sure you got your coverage and make sure that the communication was correct? How did that work?
I actually think it was very similar to, the Dare's a good point. I think I learned a lot on the Dare. We'd go into the set, they'd lock the door, and that was it. You couldn't really get out until they opened the door.
And the actors were locked to the walls as well, so they couldn't.
Sure, I mean it was a little different in the plane in that if you had to get out in emergency, you could, and a lot of the time it was anchored to the. But it was get everything in, get everyone out, get the actors in, shoot. I've completely forgotten the question, Giles. What did you ask me?
It was about coverage and making sure you got that, and how did you communicate, making sure you had that, and seeing monitors, etc.
Great. I think obviously I'm there with the camera, and I'm talking to Claudia between takes, and things are being relayed to me between takes, so I know like I was right. Next time, that was great. Next time, go here. After you've picked up Manuel, they go across to Sophie and get this moment and this moment, and off this line, go across here. So there's some quite long takes, picking up various things, and I think that's why the edit. One of the reasons the edit works so well is that there is this coverage of all these little organic moments that happens. So if you were there with them, you'd be looking around, catching all these moments. Yeah, I actually don't think there'd be room. I mean, the obvious thing to say is to have 2 cameras and everything, but there wasn't room. There wasn't space.
I thought I liked working with 2 cameras at all the time because you get more coverage and you're happy about it in the editing. But there's something really something great about doing 1 camera shows and being maybe forced into it. But it means that you focus on the thing that you shoot and you try to, you know, this is it. There's no distraction. Yeah. And you can really kind of cultivate that frame. And that's the one where everything comes together. I think it focuses your work.
I agree. I prefer 1 camera because for me as a director, otherwise I'm looking at 2 different performances or 2 different camera moves. My eyes are constantly shifting. And then when it comes to me trying to tweak it or change it, you're kind of like, well, oh shit, did I like that? Playback. I'm like, well, we could have just done it all on 1 camera and switched to the other camera. I don't know. It's all about time, I think, sometimes. And
it is about time, but at the end of the day, the audience sees 1 screen.
Yes.
At a time. And you kind of, if you have the way of being able to proceed or to kind of record the story that way, you're like, okay, this is the angle that actually matters right now. This is what I want, and not be distracted with, this is also almost good. That's not,
Yeah, often you get, this is a great shot, and then there's one here that's kind of okay, well, we've got at the same time. Whereas if you're focusing on that 1 frame, I think it can become a bit of a hoovering up exercise. If you've got 8 cameras, you're, okay, we've got this, but what is the 1 frame the audience are going to look at that's going to tell the story? Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's really important, especially as filmmakers. I think it's to focus on that. Otherwise, you can be like, well, I think I got it on this one. Let's move on. Everyone's first AD's going, come on, we need to move on. And then you're like, well, I sort of got it, but yeah, you don't know if you actually got it. And you don't know until the edit. Some of this, I believe you shot in VP, in virtual production. Is that correct?
The bits that are VP are the shots where she's outside the plane, out swimming the sinking plane. That was shot dry with her hanging horizontally off of wires.
Wow.
With the plane on a big LED wall.
Wow.
Going down past her, pulling her down. And the reason why we did that, and this is Dimension, who's the VP company that works with DNEG or is part of DNEG, really coming to play. We knew that this is incredibly ambitious. They warned us at every turn that what we're doing is kind of crazy and hasn't been done yet, because VP is not known for underwater work. So it's dry for wet, much like, well, in the ambition of Guillermo del Toro in The Shape of Water, where the beginning is all dry for wet with the heavy smoke stuff and all things hanging from wires and the wires painted out. In our case, of course, there was a lot of silt and bubbles added to create the sensation that she's outswimming this behemoth of a plane, pulling her down. And it was the shoot is very complicated, very slow. But what it allowed us to do is there's one shot at the end where we hold her for much longer than she could have held her breath. That was the idea, right?
Sure, yeah.
And slowly push in on a close-up of her as she's starting to pass out while swimming up to the surface. Now, none of this could have been done easily in the tank. Now, we did shoot the entire thing in the tank too, but the tank only being 6 meters deep, you can only go so far away from her. And we managed, there's one shot in there that's in the tank that I think is really convincing because it is underwater. It's fantastic. And we tracked the plane in, Frank Kaminsky, or actually it was DNEG, the entire sequence, they put the plane in. But then the VP shots are just longer, wider, and if you look closely, you see her hair doesn't move, the vest doesn't move. But I mean, yes, testament. Either you had fallen asleep, or you really didn't notice that this is actually dry for wet. So I'm very proud.
No, I remember her swimming. I remember her swimming up, going, I must remember to ask the question how they did that. And then obviously we've been talking so much, I totally forgot to ask that question. But I never would have thought it was VP. To be honest, I thought maybe green screen, or the fact you got her to swim up in the tank and then you added CG onto the plane going down beside her. But the fact you did that all VP is really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it did work.
And I'm not sure if it was completely the right decision, because I think it's not the typical scene to do in VP, but it certainly was a worthwhile experiment. And I think it came through at the end. It looks great, and I'm very happy with it. And I think in any other scenario, we would not have chosen those shots, because we would have not been able to choose such. We would have covered it differently. And I think that makes it unique. So
that is interesting. From your side as cinematographer, though, doing that, and is that difficult or is that okay?
Yeah, sure. We did it right at the end of the shoot. It was a lot of fun. It was. I think what's nice about VP is, and we've certainly pushed it right to the edges. We found where it breaks. I think what it was we're able to do is get the scale of that huge airplane falling, in the sea, falling over the cliff, disappearing behind it, and getting that big epic shot of it falling away, as behemoth, as Claudio says, into the murk, and her swimming up without any fear of her, being hurt or drowning, really. So it gave us that freedom, and Sophie was brilliant. She's a dancer. She's up on wires, swimming at the camera. There's a crane coming in. No, it allowed us to be in a very controlled environment and really see what we were going to get, to make sure the framing was working and everything was playing together. So yeah, it was very useful. It's an exciting. I feel like it's early days for VP, but it's certainly a very powerful tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, comparing that to practical, or if we would say, okay, we want to shoot everything VP, how would you feel about that?
Maybe in a year or two. It's progressing quite quickly. There's things that are, I think it's great for things like that where, you couldn't touch the airplane. It's too far away. It's falling away into the distance. I think there's still, I don't think it'll ever completely replace traditional filmmaking. I need to be able to touch this microphone. I need to be able to interact with the environment. Things I can touch have to be real. But yeah, I think there's definite use cases for it, for sure. And this was a great experiment. And yeah, I think, as Claudio says, it allowed us to shoot in a way that we wouldn't be able to do in the tank. We wouldn't have thought of doing things. What really helped was there's some interactive lighting. So she's not lit by the screen. She's lit separately from the big rig that we put in, that Bernie put in. And there's a wonderful moment where she goes under the tailplane.
Yes.
And it blocks the light.
Yeah.
And that was a physical gag that we did.
Oh, was it? Because I thought it
really ties it together.
Yeah, it did. It really did. Because I thought she was going to get hit with it, and I was like, "Well, this would be the way she died." I was like, "Oh no!" Because they mentioned the tail, the wing, or the tail, whatever, in the beginning. Look at the tail. So I thought, "Oh, that's the thing that hits her and kills her after all of this." So I'm so glad it didn't. But I love the fact that I thought he was going to, and that you did a shadow across her to do that. So that was really nice.
I think it gives you that proximity. We worked a lot to get that kind of forced perspective. The wing, because obviously it can't come out of the plane. We talked about having a physical fin and all sorts, but yeah, I think it really works.
It does really work. Well, let's talk about the edit then. What was that like for you in terms of first seeing it and trying to piece together everything you had? I imagine there was quite a lot of footage, but also a lot of, like as Andy said, you were filming a lot of the time when you were still getting set and getting back into position. But you probably might not have seen that if an editor was coming in tidying everything up for you.
I mean, I was fortunate to have Adam Recht cut this. This is our fourth movie.
Oh, perfect. He knows your style. He knows what you like.
There's the shorthand that just made me feel completely comfortable, and he knows exactly what I like and what I don't like and how I go about. And he's, definitely the smartest person you can have, because he has this talent of sometimes making something out of nothing. And I will say with this movie, in many ways, is sort of an exercise in suspense and tension. And what I have come, I believe, to learn in these genre movies is that it seems to all revolve often around these gags that you have, these jump scares and moments of, extreme violence or horror or shock or stuff like that. but it's not the moments. They are, not only do they only take up a very small amount of time in your movie, but they only matter if you prepare them, if you anticipate them properly, and if you have some emotional, footing around them. And Adam is great at, building tension and holding tension and creating suspense and maximizing that. Maybe one of the sort of an odd thing to have discovered, because it's in every, one would think we know that by now. The whole design of the sharks, the shark scares in the movie, the sequence with Colum swimming and encountering the first shark was a bit more elaborate, I will say. And it was designed to have this sort of standoff with this big shark, and we would see much of it, in fact. And it was really beautifully shot, and I think it would have been a beautiful sort of Jurassic Park-esque scene where you're like, oh, this is the T-Rex. Oh my God, look at this thing. And then, so we put it together like this. And even before we started putting in the CG sharks, we're like, oh, I'm not sure. It's just a bit too, I don't know. It doesn't quite scare us the way that we thought it would. And then what Adam did, we took out all of the shark encounters in the movie and strung them together in one row. Just forget everything else, just the shark encounters, and looked at how they developed over the course of the story. And we feel like, well, you know what? It's funny. We see too much of the shark at the beginning and not enough at the end. It needs to be the other way around. We need to tease it at the old Spielberg way, where you don't show the shark forever. And in fact, contrary to common belief, I will state that in Jaws, I think you see a lot of the shark, actually. It's not that you don't see the shark. The shark actually, and even Bruce the shark, the physical shark, I think works tremendously well at the end of the movie. Contrary to common belief, I think it's fantastic. Yeah. And it gets huge amounts of close-ups and inserts and big shots and all that. But not for a long time. The first 2/3 of the movie, you barely see anything of it. You don't see glimpses, and you see more and more and more as you go along. But because I think it sort of positions or places this idea of the shark in the audience's mind at the beginning, you then go along with it. And we felt we totally did it the wrong way in the first go in our movie. We showed the shark at the beginning and thought, okay, that's going to be great. No, and then so we pulled back a lot of the shark in the first encounter and then gradually revealed more, and often had these, like you see the shark through the window, which means that it always breaks frame. You don't see it. You don't see the shark in its entirety. Not until the very end, where Ava, Sophie McIntosh, their character, has this sort of alien-esque, face-off moment where we see the beast in its entirety, albeit through murky water in the night. But you go like, oh my God, that was the thing that they were up against, then, and that suddenly started to feel right.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's what's wonderful about the edit place, isn't it? You can play, you can go, let's try that for a bit. That doesn't feel right. Why not? You can get other people to look at it, do test screenings. You can see what worked, what they liked, what didn't, what characters worked, what should we pull back on, what should have more of. And that's wonderful you said that about the shark. Just to touch on that, Andy, in terms of the shark stuff, obviously you're shooting either not a shark or a 3D printed version of what could be something there.
Shoot not the shark. Shoot
not the shark, but the bubbles. Yeah,
exactly. That's true. I mean, there's obviously there's shots where it's just thrashing water.
Yes,
but there a lot of the time there's a diver there with a full size grey shark head.
Oh, really? Right. Okay.
You believe there's a shark in the water. Like your body thinks there's a shark in the water when you're swimming around.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes there'll just be a fin. Like, it's scary. It's quite scary.
Which meant you could put that into your camera work, because it did come across.
Which I hope comes across. Yeah,
it did.
Because like that's such a great thing. That was one of the most fun things about the film, was you're in this space with the actors. It's real. The set's real. You look out, there's water. Or on the plane crash, you look out and you see sky. It wasn't green screen. It was projected. So. Yeah, you get it from the actors. The way they're acting informs your camera work, and yeah, you can sort of dance together.
Very good. How were test audiences then, in terms of when you were testing this, and how's that process for you as a director, dealing with that and notes from producers and notes from everywhere else?
Well, it's both informative and super important, and at the same time, heart attack inducing.
Yep, indeed.
Suicide time, you know what I mean? When you show the movie in its unfinished stage, and then you have to kind of expose it to an audience and go like, okay, you know, and have them react to things that are clearly not done. That sometimes can be counterproductive in some way, but very productive in another way, because you have to be honest. It's not so much showing it to an audience, whether it's a proper audience or just a bunch of friends. I find it's not necessarily the specific notes that one might get back that are important, but I notice that I feel different about the movie when I show it to people. I notice that stuff that I don't necessarily feel when I see it, when I watch it back on my own, suddenly comes to the surface when I expose it to others and go like, oh, you know what, this is not quite working yet, is it?
Yeah, when you're in a room with other people watching your movie, you suddenly go, oh, that's too slow. Why have I lingered on that shot? Or that doesn't make sense. It's so weird. When you sit there with the editor in the edit room, it's fine. Suddenly you sit other people there and you go, oh, this bit's boring. Oh, this bit's too quick. Isn't that weird how that happens?
It's very strange, yeah. Yes. It has to do with honesty, I believe, and just having to come to Jesus, you know, like, okay, this is not good yet. We got to be better. And also the movie is a very living thing, right? While it's still on the table, the patient is still kind of like,
yes, still alive.
You know, something gets better, which means that other things get much worse, but they were okay before. So why is that? So finding the right balance is a very strange process.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you actually, in terms of when you were on set and trying to get the right level of performance of reaction from a plane crash or from shark attack or someone dying, to keep, for actors, it's very difficult to keep in that same level of performance for a long time, which is why I always do, if they got to cry, try and do it straight away. You know, there's no point in them being on the back of the head and they've got tears streaming down the face. You won't get that again. Was it similar here in terms of getting those big kind of scary, oh my God, we're going to die reactions?
Well, first of all, I was in a place where the actors made it so easy for me. I mean, I think Sophie cried for days.
Bless her.
And just seemed to have this ability to just stay in the emotion for absolutely ever.
That's because she was trapped in a tiny fuselage with Andy and Nathan.
With Andy, yeah.
Exactly, that's probably what it is. You know? Pure torture. Just honesty. No, I mean, they were really a wonderful bunch. And I think there's not really a method to that, because I think every actor is different in essence.
Yeah.
But what I have found over the years that I've been doing this now, I found an approach to be helpful to me is, and I encourage anybody who's interested to read, look him up, is Mark Travis. Mark Travis is a director and has written a bunch of books about filmmaking, and he has this method on how to direct actors, which is, I mean, it's a whole thing. It's a whole school of thought, I suppose. But in essence, it's about directing the character and not directing the actor. So you're not starting with a result-oriented approach, but you try to get access to the character through the actor. I'm not talking about method acting necessarily, but I found that when you address, as a director, when you address the character, and you get through to the character when talking to the actor, and then you kind of remove your own persona, both the actors and my own persona, out of the equation. It's not about do more or less, but you always get to the truth of it all, and you can ask. It's almost like interviewing a person. You know, you ask them, so what do you feel? Why does it not? So why are you not scared that this plane is going down? Tell me, are you really that Teflon? What does, you know, if you talk to the character that way, you inevitably, I find, you get you're always getting the appropriate result, if you will, but you're not asking for a result. You're not trying to achieve that result, but you kind of getting right into the process of it all. And then it's similar to saying, well, let's put up a reality around them that allows them to experience the plane crash. If you blow enough debris into any actor's face, I think they're going to flinch. You know, it's like, it's the reality of it all. That if you can make it feel like a real thing, both physically, but also emotionally, if you have enough emotional, built up that you can tap into as a director, they go like, well, remember your dad, and you have that dad as an image, and you talked about the dad, the dad, and the dad has a big influence on that person, then you can go right there without having to say, yeah, I think you should be more sad. I think that's not the way to go. So
that's fantastic and lovely to hear for our listeners as well. That's really great. And I suppose just to wrap it up, cinematography wise, Andy, for you then, like looking at this moving forward, what was something in here that you went, I'll take that from this?
Do you know, it was a very daunting project. And Claudio said this at the beginning already, but it was taking all the elements, moving pieces and the complicated and all the questions, from everyone about how we're going to achieve this, and the technical side of it, and dealing with that, but also trying to find the look and feel of the movie and what is it about, and how can we make it beautiful. Like there's a lot of films that have been made, it's a genre film, but there's a lot of very beautiful genre films that make you feel a certain way. Like we talked about The Abyss a lot. We talked about Jaws, all beautifully photographed films. So I think it was trying to do that. And what I take away is I loved it. I loved the complication of it. I loved all this sort of battle against, insurmountable odds, but everyone coming together, and making it. And what I've learned is I want to do more. I want to do big sci-fi. I want to do some space stuff. I'd work with Bernie Prentice, the underwater gaffer again, and obviously Frank, all my regular guys, and Carl, and so yeah, I learned I want to do bigger things and keep going, and complication is to be embraced. And
that's really interesting actually, because you could have gone, no, I don't want to do this side, I want to do straight dramas, but the fact you're going, no, I'm fine to do that, but I also, let's do more of this was fun, let's see it, more challenges.
It was fun. It was very stressful, but I think quite lucky with director and lucky with crew that it was fun as well.
No, that's really nice. And Claudio, for you, in terms of what have you learned to move forward with as a director?
I mean, I will say that the experience in this one was one of the best experience I've had, and this is thanks to a crew, all the way through, who were ready to kind of jump off this cliff. It was a daunting. We didn't quite know, can we get out of this safe and okay? And there was a lot of ingenuity and belief and enthusiasm that just kind of strung us along, and that was quite amazing. I think it's just a complete privilege as a filmmaker to be able to get yourself into this sort of a crazy situation like this and crazy place like this and make it real. And hopefully learn something about the human condition. Would actually, nothing short of that. I mean, yeah, I know this is not Schindler's List, not trying to be Schindler's List, but it still is emotional. You learn something. I mean, there's a moment where Phyllis Logan's character hands over her grandchild to a stranger to look after her.
Yes.
And it's like, this is heavy stuff. This is actually, and yes, we embrace it. We go for it. And Phyllis was the one who's willing to embrace that and make it real. And I go, oh, wow, thank you. This is amazing. This touches me. There's something about this. And it enables Ava to become who she is, this strong woman who says, yes, I'd rather die than have Rosa die. So I do everything and anything that Phyllis would have done to keep Rosa. And that's kind of good stuff. That's strong stuff. That's interesting. And all of that in a plane underwater. I mean, come on, that's kind of crazy. That's a wonderful job that we have. So I really enjoyed that. That's quite, it was a wonderful thing.
There you go.
Claudio, thank you for coming on. It's been great to speak to you. It's always nice to see you.
Very much same here. Thank you for having me. This is great. I'll do this again.
Yay. Yes, definitely for the next film for sure. And this just proves to you can go out there and make your film in a tank if you want. You can do big action set pieces, and you can do it the way you need to do it, which is think about it, do it properly, and plan and prepare. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to
get out of the airplane, swim to the surface, and get in a helicopter, and then find us, and then give us the jobs.
Yes, that's exactly it. Or you can send the elevator back down and help everyone else at the same time. I mean, it's similar. It's close.
Is that what you say every week?
Yeah.
Oh, not the thing I said.
No, it's close to the thing you said.
Okay.
You've just adapted it into your way. So yeah. Claudio F, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real treat.
Thank you, Giles. Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, and thank you, Andy, for sorting this out.
My pleasure. I'm glad it worked out. It's good fun.
Yeah, well, take care, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday, as always. For now, though, go out there, make your films, and let us know how you get on. Take care. Bye.